When one of Hollywood's most recognizable leading men stepped onto the set of a daytime talk show, the expectation was a relaxed conversation filled with movie promotion and light banter. Instead, what unfolded was a tense and chaotic exchange that no one in the studio seemed prepared for. The appearance, which should have celebrated a blockbuster film and a decades-long career, quickly turned into an uncomfortable clash that stunned the audience and crew alike, eventually forcing producers to intervene. He was introduced as the face behind one of the most successful action franchises in cinema history, with his latest installment dominating the global box office. Smiling broadly, he thanked the panel for having him and spoke with visible excitement about the project. He described the intense preparation, the demanding schedule, and the pride he felt in delivering something authentic for audiences. His enthusiasm felt genuine, the kind that comes from someone deeply invested in their craft. One of the co-hosts leaned in, clearly impressed, and mentioned a breathtaking motorcycle stunt featured heavily in the trailers. The actor's face lit up instantly as he explained how the sequence was executed, practically rather than digitally. Months of planning, rigorous safety checks, and countless rehearsals had gone into making the moment possible. He emphasized that practical stunts brought an irreplaceable realism to the screen, something both performers and viewers could feel. Another host praised his discipline and asked about maintaining such physical intensity years into his career. He laughed it off, brushing aside any focus on age and instead pointing to passion as the driving force. For him, loving the work made the physical demands worthwhile. Each day on set felt like a privilege, not an obligation. He spoke about gratitude, about waking up eager to push boundaries and collaborate with people who shared the same dedication. The conversation continued smoothly as the panel discussed his co-stars. He joked that they often thought he was reckless, but they also understood why he committed so fully. When fellow actors saw him risking his safety on set, it heightened their own performances. So that real fear and adrenaline carried through the scene, creating chemistry that no visual effect could fake. The lead host nodded in agreement, crediting that commitment for the intensity audiences saw on screen. Then the tone shifted abruptly. One host cleared her throat and cut in, her voice noticeably sharper than before. She dismissed the discussion of stunts and films as secondary, suggesting that viewers were more interested in the actor's personal beliefs and controversial affiliations. The warmth drained from the room almost instantly. The actor's smile faltered, replaced by a guarded expression as he asked for clarification. She pressed forward, referencing his long-standing association with a controversial organization and the criticism it had attracted over the years. She argued that, given his influence, the public deserved answers. The studio fell silent. Choosing his words carefully, the actor responded calmly, stating that he was there to talk about his work and that his beliefs were private matters. He made it clear that he did not feel this was the appropriate setting for such a discussion. The host refused to let the issue go. Leaning forward, she insisted that personal beliefs became public business when attached to someone with global reach, especially when serious allegations were involved. The actor's tone hardened as he rejected what he described as unproven claims. He said he had never engaged in or supported harmful behavior and criticized the use of a national platform to circulate misleading narratives. Sensing the tension escalating, the lead host attempted to redirect the conversation back to the film. Her effort was cut short. The confrontation intensified as accusations piled on, including references to past statements about mental health that critics had labeled irresponsible. The actor clenched his jaw, visibly frustrated, and accused his interviewer of distorting his words. He insisted that he had never discouraged medical treatment and that sharing personal experiences did not equate to promoting danger. The exchange grew more personal. The host mocked his past public moments, ridiculing highly publicized behavior from earlier in his career. Her comments drew gasps from the audience as she questioned his judgment and stability. The actor's composure finally cracked. His voice sharpened as he challenged the insult, clearly offended by being demeaned on live television. The lead host stepped in forcefully, telling her co-host to stop. It was too late. The damage had been done. The accusatory host continued, listing failed marriages, family estrangements, and tabloid headlines as evidence of chaos. The atmosphere became unbearable. Without another word, the actor rose from his seat, signaling the breaking point of an interview that had gone far beyond its original purpose. The accusation crossed a line, and the tension in the studio became impossible to ignore. Tom made it clear that the exchange had veered far away from anything resembling a fair interview. Joy responded without hesitation, insisting that nothing she said was inappropriate. She reminded him that he had chosen to appear on the show and that public figures should expect scrutiny, especially when their actions and affiliations had sparked controversy. In her view, these topics were valid and unavoidable. Tom fired back, his voice noticeably louder, emphasizing that his purpose for being there was to promote his film. He said he had not agreed to be cornered or confronted by someone pushing a predetermined narrative. Joy scoffed at the idea, dismissing his frustration as an attempt to dodge accountability. She claimed her role was to challenge celebrities, rather than offer them a comfortable space to advertise their latest projects. According to her, asking difficult things was not a personal vendetta but a responsibility. Tom bristled at the implication. He listed the things he believed he was being judged for, including his work ethic, his commitment to performing his own stunts, and his passion for filmmaking. Joy interrupted sharply, reframing the issue as something far darker. She accused him of using his fame to validate an organization she described as harmful, one she claimed had broken families and suppressed victims. Her words hung heavily in the air, and the atmosphere grew even more hostile. Tom's face reddened with anger as he rejected the accusation outright. He said she had no understanding of the reality she was describing. Joy leaned back with visible satisfaction, stating that she had done extensive research. She claimed to have spoken with former members and read numerous accounts that painted a troubling picture. To her, his continued defense of the organization was not loyalty but complicity, something she found deeply disturbing. Tom countered by saying she had relied on selective sources, people who were bitter and motivated by resentment. He accused her of choosing information that supported a story she had already decided to tell before he even arrived. Joy seized on his response, suggesting that it sounded exactly like what someone under heavy influence would say. She mocked his tone and implied that he lacked awareness of how his defense appeared to the public. The words struck a nerve. Tom expressed disbelief, pointing out that he had been invited under the assumption of a professional discussion, not a public attack on his personal convictions. Joy insisted that the goal had always been honesty and claimed he was simply unwilling to engage openly. As the exchange escalated, another host attempted to interrupt and suggest a pause, but Joy dismissed the idea with a wave of her hand, determined to continue. She pressed forward, demanding justification for what she described as silence in the face of disturbing allegations made by former members. Tom responded with strained restraint, saying he did not ignore anything but refused to lend credibility to falsehoods and conspiracies. Joy reacted with visible triumph, listing investigations, legal actions, and documented harassment as evidence. She framed his refusal to acknowledge them as denial rather than discernment. Tom accused her of twisting facts, just as she had distorted the entire interview. Joy pushed back immediately, asserting that her approach reflected responsible journalism. Tom laughed bitterly, calling the exchange a calculated attack masquerading as reporting. The lead host tried once again to steer the conversation toward Tom's professional achievements, hoping to de-escalate the situation. Joy responded with exaggerated surprise, reframing his career around controversial past remarks. She referenced earlier television appearances in which he had criticized psychiatry and discussed alternatives to traditional treatment. Tom snapped back, stating firmly that certain claims attributed to him were outright false. He said he had never suggested simplistic cures for serious mental health conditions. Joy dramatically produced notes, claiming she had transcripts that supported her version of events. She quoted his comments about nutrition and exercise, presenting them as reckless and irresponsible. Tom immediately clarified that advocating lifestyle considerations was not the same as dismissing medical care. He accused her of intentionally misrepresenting his words to provoke outrage. Joy smiled coldly, suggesting that discomfort often followed confrontation with one's own statements. Another host shifted uneasily and attempted to introduce nuance, arguing that context mattered. Joy turned on her colleague, insisting that the broader context was misuse of celebrity influence. She claimed that his statements discouraged people from seeking legitimate help for serious conditions. Tom raised his voice further, denying that characterization. He said he had only shared personal experiences and encouraged people to educate themselves. Joy reframed his experiences as those of a spokesperson for an organization she claimed opposed psychiatric medication. Tom denied that as well, stating that she was repeating false talking points. Joy laughed dismissively, accusing him of spreading propaganda. She pressed him to take a definitive stance, attempting to corner him into a simplified declaration. Tom responded carefully, saying he believed people deserved access to information so they could make informed choices. The frustration in his voice was unmistakable as he resisted being forced into a reductive position. Joy refused to back down and doubled down on her stance, insisting that the issue was simple and binary. In her view, psychiatry either benefited people or harmed them, and there was no room for nuance. Tom responded calmly at first, saying that, like any profession, there were competent professionals and incompetent ones. He emphasized that people should educate themselves and make choices based on reliable information rather than blind allegiance. His attempt to add balance only fueled Joy further. She twisted his words into an extreme interpretation, suggesting that he was advocating research over professional help in moments of crisis. Her tone was laced with sarcasm, painting a picture of vulnerable people being left to fend for themselves. Tom snapped back, clearly frustrated, stating that she was deliberately misrepresenting his position. He made it clear that he had never implied such reckless behavior and accused her of knowingly distorting his statements. Joy pressed harder, claiming his explanation sounded contradictory and evasive. Another host attempted to calm the situation and steer the conversation back towards safer ground, but Joy rejected the interruption. She declared that the discussion had finally stripped away the polished celebrity image and revealed the man beneath the public relations machine. According to her, this confrontation exposed the truth behind the carefully managed persona. At that point, Tom stood up again, his patience completely worn away. He spoke with intensity, describing himself as someone who worked relentlessly, dedicating long, exhausting days to his craft in order to entertain audiences around the world. He framed his identity around discipline, commitment, and a lifelong devotion to filmmaking. Joy immediately countered by redefining him as someone unable to answer a straightforward challenge about the legitimacy of psychiatry. Tom fired back that the framing itself was dishonest and designed to trap him regardless of his response. He accused her of approaching the conversation with a predetermined conclusion and bending every answer to fit it. Joy responded with a smug confidence, implying that his reluctance stemmed from the weakness of his beliefs. Tom stated firmly that his beliefs were personal matters and not subject to public interrogation. Joy rejected that boundary outright. She argued that once someone used their fame to influence millions, personal beliefs became fair game. She accused him of spreading harmful misinformation about mental health treatment on national platforms. Tom's voice dropped into a controlled calm as he denied ever spreading false information, then turned the accusation back on her, saying she was the one misleading the audience in that moment. Joy theatrically produced notes and cited past remarks, claiming he had denied the existence of chemical imbalances and compared psychiatry to extremist practices. Tom's voice sharpened dangerously as he denied making such statements. Joy claimed she had multiple sources backing her version. Tom dismissed those sources as lies without hesitation, escalating the hostility even further. Joy seized on his denial and broadened her attack. She implied that anyone who criticized him was automatically labeled dishonest in his eyes. She brought up former spouses who had spoken publicly about the strain his beliefs placed on their marriages, along with former members who described intimidation and harassment. Tom reacted with disbelief, calling out the sudden inclusion of his ex-wives as completely inappropriate and questioning the integrity of the entire exchange. Joy responded smugly, framing the confrontation as real journalism rather than a promotional appearance. She said the purpose was to examine who celebrities truly were, instead of letting them advertise movies unchecked. Tom's voice shook with anger as he stated that he had never agreed to be personally attacked on live television. Tom corrected her instantly, calling them documented falsehoods spread by people with grudges and magnified by hosts chasing their own agendas. Now Joy stood up as well. She declared that her only agenda was protecting the public from what she called dangerous influences. Like him. Tom let out a bitter laugh and said that all he did was make movies and entertain people, while she spread division and hostility in front of millions. Joy snapped back that she was exposing the truth, something she claimed he clearly could not tolerate. Tom stared at her in disbelief and said she would not recognize truth, even if it was right in front of her. Joy responded with vicious satisfaction, repeating her claim that he was a representative of a cult that destroyed families. Without missing a beat, Tom fired back, calling her a bitter and small-minded person who ambushed guests to feel powerful. The studio fell into stunned silence. Even Joy appeared taken aback by how directly he struck back. A quiet gasp came from one of the other hosts, but Tom was not finished. He accused her of talking about ruined families while ignoring the damage she had done that day. He said she had spread lies to millions of viewers in the span of a single segment. Joy insisted she had not lied at all, though the certainty in her voice was gone. Tom stepped closer and said every word she had spoken was dishonest, starting with the promise that this would be a professional interview. Joy suddenly told him not to come any closer, her confidence faltering. For the first time. Tom challenged her, asking what she would do next, call security, and have him removed for defending himself. Whoopi quickly moved between them and told Tom that he should leave. Tom agreed, saying he would go, but not because he was being forced out. He said he was leaving because the show had turned into a stage for personal vendettas rather than real journalism. Joy regained her voice and told him not to let the door hit him on the way out. Tom turned back one last time and said the real tragedy was that she had been given an opportunity to have a meaningful conversation with someone who had dedicated his life to his work, and instead, she chose pettiness and cruelty. He said that choice revealed far more about her character than anything she accused him of. Joy shot back that defending a cult instead of addressing serious concerns revealed exactly who he was. Tom replied calmly that the only cult he saw was the cult of ignorance she was leading. With that, he turned and began walking toward the exit. Joy could not resist one final jab, accusing him of running away just as he always did when faced with tough scrutiny. Tom stopped and slowly turned around. He said that if she wanted a truly hard question, he had one for her. He asked how she managed to sleep at night knowing she used her position to humiliate and attack people for her own satisfaction. Joy smiled smugly and said she slept just fine because she believed she was doing the right thing. Tom answered quietly that she was doing the easy thing. He said tearing people down was always easy, while building something meaningful and contributing positively to the world was far harder. Joy called for security, saying the guest needed to leave. Tom replied that he was already leaving, not because she demanded it, but because he refused to participate in what he called a pathetic spectacle. As uniformed guards appeared and escorted him off the set, their discomfort obvious, Joy turned to the camera with a satisfied look and commented on his character. Even then, her fellow hosts looked appalled. Whoopi shook her head and told Joy her behavior had been completely inappropriate. Joy defended herself weakly, claiming she had asked necessary questions. Another host quietly pointed out that ambushing a guest was not journalism. Joy insisted it was accountability, but the conviction had drained from her voice as she realized she stood alone, surrounded by colleagues who were clearly disturbed by what had just unfolded.